The Town are back at home on Tuesday night under the floodlights as Stoke City are the visitors to Kenilworth Road. Alongside me to preview what we hope will be a whole lot more entertaining than it was on Saturday is the Lutonian journalist James Cunliffe. Jimbo, let me entertain you rang around the ground at half time on Saturday, and let's hope that's got through to the players.
Let's hope so. We don't ask for much, but it's got to be better than Saturday.
Do well to be worse. We'll preview it after this intro.
For me, it's the people and the spirit of the people as well.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome along to another episode of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast, the award-winning and longest-running Luton Town podcast, having scooped bronze in the Best Football League podcast category in this year's Football Content Awards. This season, the show is in association with Solid, providing opportunities, provisions and assistance so our academy can fulfil their potential. And let's hope some of them get a chance to do that on Tuesday night, As I said before the intro, we are previewing Luton Town versus Stoke City, 7:45. If you haven't got a ticket to this game, I think there are still some available, but do check before you go. If not, you want Sky Sports Plus to watch this game of football. And alongside me, as always, is the Lutonian journalist, James Cunliffe. Jimbo, as we said before the intro, just be a bit more, not a bit more, just be entertaining and more entertaining than we were on Saturday. That's the starting reference for this one, isn't it?
I kind of think that entertaining is a bit of a stretch, but just a couple of passes to each other might be the starting point.
You do drive a hard bargain, that's for sure. To be honest, there's no reason why we can't entertain against Stoke, because if you look at Stoke, they're the second worst in the league for expected goals against. 33.3 goals they should have conceded this season. Now, that's more than what we've conceded. They've only conceded 24 in total. That will immediately tell you that their goalkeeper's good. We'll come on to him because he is good. But it shows that their defence can be got at, or has been got at. You know, time's come for us to get at it. And, you know, none of this sitting back and sort of waiting for the game to happen. Go and make the game happen.
Yeah, it's got to be a damn sight better. Yeah, but I think you'd be hard pushed to. I think it's worth reiterating that the last three games have been against the top three teams in terms of possession in the division, and Stoke aren't that. They're not renowned for that. I think they tried to go like that, and that's why Stoke are where they are now. We shouldn't throw stones in glass houses at the moment, but that's the historical context. But so I think that they won't have as much of the ball. If they do, major danger signs and warning signs, but it's about what Luton do with it, and they just couldn't pass to each other on Saturday. It was really, really bad. It was so dispiriting because when that wasn't working, the frustration came in, and maybe then they just resolved to go long all the time like they did, and that also didn't work. So there's going to have to be a bit more ingenuity here, and maybe considering all the drama at the back line and what we expect probably will be lining up against Stoke, it's going to have to be attack, isn't it? Because the defence is threadbare again.
Yeah, I bloody hope so. That's for sure. I've checked the temperatures. It's not meant to be too warm on Tuesday night. Could do with something to warm us up on the pitch, couldn't we? Rather than that tepid nonsense that we got on Saturday. A couple of Stoke players to watch out for in this one then. Just going by stats, I try not to watch Stoke if I get the chance not to. Andre Vidigal has the most shots per 90 minutes in the Championship this season. Would you know? 6.6 shots per 90. Now, I can't believe that Stoke get into the penalty box enough to give him 7 shots per 90 minutes. So you've got to guess from that number, which is a pretty high number, really, 7 shots per game. Okay, it doesn't play every game or 90 minutes in every game, but that would suggest that he lets fly from here, there, and everywhere, rather than quality of chances of things like that. But anyone who does that at the minute seems to be finding the top corner of our net. So have it on notice that the geezer's going to have a shot. Don't stand off him.
Oh yeah, easier said than done at the moment, isn't it? Because what we saw against Swansea, it wasn't just Grimes who scored the goal. Franco had a couple. They got him behind as well. I mean, ideally, you're thinking because of Thomas Kaminski, and he was one of the only bright spots, although you don't want your goalie to be man of the match at home, because that tells its own story. If they're shooting from distance, you are going to have to stick it in the top bins to get past Thomas Kaminski most of the time. So if he's, that stat doesn't say where he's shot the ball, does it? He could be hitting the corner flag every time for all we know. But, maybe that's part of Luton's thinking, that you could let him have a shot from distance because Thomas Kaminski's that good of a shot stopper. And he is. We know that. That's his main attribute. But you can't be gifting that many free spaces and open spaces after that performance at the weekend. It needs to be, the basics all need to be there. Everybody marking, everybody challenging, putting bodies on the line, and go from there. You said entertaining at the beginning of the podcast, and obviously I do think that's a stretch, but what you can do is fight, really. And hopefully they'll see a lot more of the ball, because Stoke aren't as high as Swansea, and Swansea arguably would be much higher if they could stick the ball in the net with more regularity. So hopefully the two teams on Tuesday night are closer to each other. But, confidence being the factor that it is, you need something. You need I don't know. Ideally you want an early goal or something to settle nerves, but I'd settle for a really robust challenge or something, a fair one. Don't get me wrong, I don't want anyone sent off, but thunder into somebody really fairly and get people on the side, because it was awfully quiet at the weekend, certainly the first half, and people are angry. So you're looking for tiny small things to change, and those don't rely on quality, attacking quality. They rely on people just showing a bit of application.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I agree with all of that. Another person to pick out in this Stoke side, as I referenced a minute ago, is the goalkeeper, Victor Johansson, formerly of Rotherham, now very much of Stoke. Makes 4.1 saves per 90 minutes on average. Now he will play it. They're not going to switch goalkeepers every game, so it's basically saving 4 shots a match, just over. And in terms of the XG that Stoke have conceded with him in goal to goals that they've actually conceded, he saved 8.2 goals, which is the most in the entire division. That's more than Kaminski as well. Amazingly, we're conceding a heck of a lot more goals than what the numbers suggest that we should do, which is borne out by all of our defensive mistakes, which hopefully are out of the way here. There is another man we've got to watch out for, though, isn't there? Because if I take you back to August and the last day of the summer transfer window, there were large rumours that someone in the Stoke front line, Mr. Cannon, was an interest for us. Therefore, how football works. We've watched football long enough that he's probably going to stick one in the top corner.
Yeah, that is a concern. I mean, the interest was very strong, wasn't it?
I mean, we've come up against 2 people that we supposedly had an interest in the summer already this season. Rak Saki at Sheffield United, who's put 2 in, and Kamara of Hull, who basically had Reece Burke running here, there and everywhere. Have the day off, mate. Just have the night off.
Yeah, I mean, like you, I don't really pay too much attention to Stoke, but on the odd occasion that I have, he always seems to pop up with a goal for them. So, the interest was very strong, wasn't it? Part of the reason why Joe Taylor is still at the club and not gone to Huddersfield, it's because they were in for Cannon, wasn't it? And at the last minute, 11th hour, he decided to go to Stoke. And yeah, all of those things have borne out this season. When you need to give somebody a leg up, you do. When you need to, snuff out somebody who's got maybe a point to prove. I don't think that's particularly the case here. Why would he have a point to prove? But he probably will want to show that he's gone to the right team as far as he's concerned. So yeah, I hope he has a stinker, but it could very well be one of those look what we could have had situations.
Yeah, when you're out of luck, you're low on confidence and things aren't going well, these sorts of things don't have to come along and remind you of where you could be. And yeah, as I say, Raksaki's already scored twice. Kamara looked very, very good as well, didn't he? And yeah, here's this one. Got a foreign manager though, Stoke. Narcis Pelach was a coach at Norwich. I think they've got Jack Wilshere in his place now, actually. Was a coach at Norwich. I've said before on this podcast, first time managers in Championship is a massive no-no for me. We referenced it when we did the whole preview with Tim Volter, and lo and behold, he's been and gone inside 15 games. Unless they spend an absolute sackload of dough, which to be fair, Stoke have done in the past, not necessarily recently, but in the past. Unless there's a load of dough spent, like your Marcelo Bielsa's, your Nuno's when he was at Wolves and the like, they just don't work for me. Clearly, he's replaced Steven Schumacher this season. They've not really gone anywhere. I mean, we've had some atrocious form, and they're still only 2 points in front of us. So we wouldn't exactly call it a new manager bounce. I think they're without a winning 5 going into this game, which, well, it sounds good, but we've faced teams in worse form and played them into form, haven't we? Plymouth being one. And yeah, you just got to hope that, that continental style, I would guess, doesn't really work in the sort of, I mean, they all say, can you do it on a Tuesday night in Stoke? Let's hope Stoke can't do it on a Tuesday night in Luton, really.
Yeah, and I suppose that they're not particularly renowned as being a continental style football team. It was essentially their downfall, wasn't it? They went from Pulis to trying to be more of a football inside, and is where they've ended up. Via the odd Luton manager or two. Oh, just the one. So yeah, there's that rivalry, isn't there? Because the second time around when Nathan went, it was more amicable when he went to Southampton. But that time there was obviously some talks and stuff in the background, and then Nathan went. Now, as it turns out, things went quite well for Luton after that point, and not so much for Nathan. But there is still that bit of bad blood, isn't there? So maybe, when you're really, really grasping at straws for something that might spur the crowd on somewhat.
Yeah, I think you are grasping at straws there. Yeah, that's for sure. And ironically, the reverse fixture of this was Nathan's last game in charge of Luton, wasn't it? When he shouldn't have been in charge, when it was clear he was going to Southampton, and they should have just let him go and put Mick in charge or whatever for the night. 2-0 defeat, I think it was. Could still be playing there now, 2 years later, whatever it is. Wouldn't have scored. Absolute shambolic display. But yeah, that's in the past. I mean, who knows?
What?
This could...
Shambolic displays aren't in the past.
No, they're not, unfortunately. Well, hopefully they are, because hopefully we can turn the corner here. Who knows? This could be the last fixture of the current tenure. We don't know. That remains to be seen. Let's hope that we can find 3 points. Let's turn the attention back to Luton then. Obviously, since then, Rob has coached us to a win over Stoke. We won last time out here in that promotion winning season. That's obviously a good thing. I guess the problem is we've got to find some players, because we haven't got many of them. We're running short of them, aren't we? You look at the bench on Saturday. To be fair, the bench on Saturday looked pretty strong. For all the injuries that we've got, there was a couple of academy products on the bench, but in Zach Nelson and Joe Johnson, they're not like also rans that are just there to sort of have a day out and sit on a bench. They're genuinely part of the squad. Of course, someone's going to have to come off of that bench and play, because Amari'i Bell isn't going to play, or at least we don't think so. The general consensus was that he's twanged his hamstring in some way, shape or form. And Amari Bell's last two injuries were to both hamstrings, weren't they? So he's obviously had this issue before. That's kind of screaming at me, and I hope I'm wrong, that surgery is going to have to take place somewhere along the line to get this issue sorted out, which would rule him out for a long time. That's not confirmed. That's only my hunch, and just having watched football for so long, when the same injury occurs, eventually it ends up in surgery, a la Ted and Mengi. And we need to find a replacement, don't we? I mean, we finished on Saturday with a back three of Mads, Mark and Tom Holmes. I have to say that not filling me with confidence, that particular back three. There's no pace to it at all. One player hasn't played hardly any football for 12 months. Another one in Holmes is still really integrating himself within the squad. And McGuinness, he played well on Saturday, probably doing likewise. But I don't really see another option.
Well, none of the scenarios really fill you with the confidence, do you? Because
I should say I don't see another option in the formation that we expect Rob to play.
Well, yeah, we expect it. We expect it will be a 3, won't we? And that would mean that those players will start. But then the other option is we get the 4, but then who do you put at left back? And it'll be somebody playing out of position, which people don't like either. So none of the scenarios really fill you that much confidence.
Unless now is the time. Just throw Joe Johnson in there. He might sink. He might do. Let's be honest. Most people are sinking in this team right now. But he might swim.
Well, he might do. I mean,
but if you throw him in with a go and show me what you can do, Joe, between you and I, you can't do no worse. What's he got to lose?
Yeah, I mean, the only difference in Mengi is that he had to play last season because of all the injuries, and he got a pretty much full season in the Premier League. But they're all England youth team internationals, and I think, well, Joe and Zach Nelson are first choice in their age groups, whereas Tedden seems to be a standby. I mean, that may be the strength of the under-21s, but that's the kind of difference there. So somewhere along the line, you've got to get lucky and take your chance. And I guess you could argue that they did have the chance, but Burnley was not the one at the start of the season, and there were those issues. But then those issues have continued, whoever's been the personnel. So maybe people will respond better to them because they're homegrown products.
Well, there's two things, isn't there, with that? Certainly with Joe Johnson. Firstly, against Burnley, he played left centre half. Let's cut that out. If we're going to play him, let's play him at left back in a back 4. That's the position he plays for England, so we're led to believe. And if he can play for England under 19s, he should sure as hell be able to play in the Championship at it. But yeah, you're right. Luton fans have always gotten behind one of their own. He hasn't really ever let us down when he's played at left back. Think of his debut in the league against Middlesbrough when he came on, and that was a good Middlesbrough side, wasn't it? I mean, everyone at that time was expecting Middlesbrough to be promoted. Didn't let us down. Played a couple more games that season, absolutely fine. Came on in the Premier League a number of times. Played in the FA Cup at Everton. Didn't let us down in any of those games. And as I say, he might sink, but he might swim. And we're only going to find out if he's in the team. And I'd much rather play Joe Johnson in a back 4. So a back 4 of Joe Johnson, McGuinness, Holmes, Hashioka. They'll fill me with a little bit of confidence. Johnson's, he's not lightning quick, but he give Mads 20 yards over 100 and catch him, I would imagine. So it gives us a little bit of pace. Again, we're up against a side that play 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 or whichever combination you want, i.e. they've got 2 wingers and 1 centre forward. So he would have an out-and-out winger to mark. Whereas at left centre-half, our left centre-half and our right centre-half, and we've done this till we're blue in the face, we're in a back 3, they just don't know who to mark. So he'll have a direct winger to go up against. Okay, it might be a decent winger. I don't know who plays right wing for Stoke. But he'll know he's in a one-on-one battle. Now, if England trust him in a one-on-one battle, surely we can. And it just gives us a little bit of flexibility that if anything does happen to a centre-half, Mads is on the bench ready to come on. Because he's never really struck me as a centre-half who can play in a 3 anyway. Because he'd want to be the middleman of the 3 anyway, and you're not going to move McGuinness from there. Certainly doesn't strike me as someone who could play on the left of a 3. Do I see it happening? No, because that would involve a back four. But you could do that, I think.
Yeah, you could. You could. I think we're talking two different scenarios here. We're talking what we want to see, which is what we've basically been talking about the whole time and not getting, and what we probably will see.
Do you think we'll play a back three though, or do you think Rob's seen that the back four works? I mean, I know he came out with a positive sort of attitude after Saturday, but when he watches that back, he must be able to appreciate that was crap. So does he then, and then thinking back to Norwich, does he then go back to a back four?
Well, that would seem the logical scenario, because although that he lost that game at Norwich, it was mistakes rather than the formation that was the issue. And the two other times that it's been virtually forced on Luton, they've not conceded any goals. So if you need to keep it tight, which you do, because the attacking is not clicking, there's no fluidity, and thankfully that they still scored at the weekend, but that was a mistake. And if other teams aren't going to give mistakes, then you have to create them yourself. And so who knows where that's going to come from. So the very least you can do is be difficult to score against. Now that is the $1 million question, isn't it? Because Luton aren't. That XG figure that you mentioned at the start of the podcast is woeful. We've conceded 10 more goals than we probably should have, based on those figures.
10 more goals than the quality of chances we've conceded. So
yeah. So surely that's got to be the answer. Now, listen, we talked about this in the previous podcast, and you put your views out there as to you probably think it's nearing time that there's going to be a change. We don't know if that's going to happen. It may do, it may not. But whenever it does, in any football club, for any team, when it's a manager coming into a struggling side, the first job of theirs is to sort out the defence, isn't it? So that would strike me as the first place you need to look. Try and become difficult to score against.
Well, that is one of the reasons why I think the time is coming to an end, because that is our only problem. We referenced it in previous podcasts. It's now 15 in 19 games that we've scored in this season. Again, I'm going to take the Portsmouth game out, if I may, because the goalkeeper got sent off after half an hour and you lose your attacking threat at that point. So call it 15 out of 18, and 2 that we didn't score against are the current top 2 in the table. The only other team this season that we've not scored against is Preston, I believe, and I think we had something like 20 shots on that occasion. Scoring goals is not a problem for this side, no matter whether they look entertaining, whether they don't look entertaining, whether there's a perception that the game is boring or we have to rely on defensive mistakes or whatever it is. Scoring goals in this side is not a problem. They've scored goals in 15 out of 18 genuine games of football this season. It's conceding them at the other end. We've played 19 games and I think it's 34 we've conceded. That's nearly 2 a game. Therein lies the problem. And that's why I think something has to change, because it's not like this whole team needs ripping up and starting again. It just needs to find a defensive formula. And I mean, look, people listening all know exactly what we all think about this. That defensive formula seems to go right out of the window when there's only 3 of the buggers instead of 4. When there's 4 of them, they look a lot more structured. They look a lot more organised. They don't always keep clean sheets, because as we saw at Norwich, we've got this tendency to shoot ourselves in the foot. But when we have kept clean sheets this season, in the main, it has involved having a back 4. It would be nice to have a back 4. And if we do have a back 4, it gives you so many more options to utilise the fit part of your squad, because it's only defenders and defensive midfielders that get injured. No one else seems to get injured. You then can utilise the other 6 players on attacking options, or you'd have Marv, but then the other 5 on attacking options to get more of your fit players on the park, the players that are more reliable in terms of their fitness, that can keep you on the pitch, keep a settled side. Because that's largely one of our defensive problems. The back 3 is never the same. So if you haven't got 3 to play, why not just play 2 anyway? There's nothing unreliable about McGuinness. I mean, to be fair to him, for all the criticisms that people have, and some of it quite rightly so, his robustness isn't one of them, because I know he missed that Ireland game, but he hasn't missed a game for Luton since he's since he's arrived. He's played in every single one. And Tom Holmes, he picked up an injury somewhere along the equation. But the reason why he come out of the side most recently was because he got sent off at Coventry. So they're fairly reliable. And then it just gives us so many more options further up the pitch. Now, this lot have conceded an XG of 33.3 this season in 19 games. So they're close to conceding 2 goals per game on average XG in terms of quality of chances. So if the game's played out 100 times, then they'll concede 2 goals more often than not. So if they can concede 2 goals on Tuesday night, and we can just tighten ourselves up and be structured, we should, in theory, and of course football isn't played on paper, it's played on grass, but in theory, have enough about us to win the game of football, whoever's in front of them. And I don't see too many changes. It looked to me like Eli went off with an injury, though. As soon as he sat down, he was stretching something.
Yeah, he said in his post-match that he had a knee-on-knee clash and he just couldn't shake it off. But hopefully that, I mean, in any normal scenario, hopefully that would be okay. But this is Luton with the injury record that they currently have. So, yeah, that... Yeah,
so in that case, then I'm kind of fine if they err on the side of caution and go with Brown and Morris up front. Of course, Morris has now got through that suspension period. You've now got to get to 10 yellow cards before you're suspended, and he's only on 4, so he can... I mean, for fair play to him for getting through, because he's given out a few verbal tongue lashings to our own players, let alone to officials in that time. And so Morris and Brown would be a perfectly useful front two. Again, I don't really want a front two. I'd much rather have a 4-3-3. Moses one side, Brown the other side, Morris through the middle. And then you could have Marvellous, and then whichever 2 attacking midfielders you want. If you want Krause and Clark again, then Krause and Clark. If Chong's done his time on the naughty step, then you could have Chong. You know, you've still got Zach Nelson, who's on there. You've got, in a 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, however you want to set the circles up on the board, you've got so many more options for the 6 in front of the back 4 than you have when you're wasting 5 of your spots with defensive players. And it just makes sense to me in a team that's really struggled this season in the last 15 minutes, it has to be said. When you compare to last season, when Sky were flashing up the goals in the last 15 minutes in a Premier League coverage, we were right up there. This season, we're not even on the tracer, I don't think. But we can see so many, or look like conceding goals late on in the last 15 minutes. Maybe it's just the perception I've got that we do concede them, but we certainly concede a lot of late chances to concede goals. I think we can all appreciate that. Hull missed 1 in injury time. Geezer on Saturday missed a header going into injury time. Daniel James's goal at Leeds must have been fairly late, and of course the last 2 against Norwich were in the last 5 or 6 minutes. So for a team that struggles in the last 15 minutes, surely the more fitter players you can get on the pitch just naturally makes sense that you're going to see the game out a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, all that makes sense, doesn't it? It's just not what has happened.
It's just not the thinking that seems to come along. And use the subs bench.
Yeah.
Do not have 3 subs up your do not have 3 subs up your sleeve. You know, we know we've got to go to Blackburn on Saturday. Can't imagine the pitch is going to be much cop, because it didn't look particularly great from above at the end of Saturday with all the cutting up. It's going to be hard work, isn't it? Use the subs.
Yep, all of that stuff. It's just not what's happened, though, and that's
why
that's kind of the problem, isn't it?
That's why the change has to be on the horizon.
I mean, or you change those things that clearly aren't working, and you know what? That's all you can ask for in these scenarios. Because yeah, you're right. You take out the defensive cock-ups, then goals are being scored, and I would be slightly disappointed if Eli is ruled out because he's got a knock, because obviously he's got 2 in 2 and he's a form player, so that's disappointing. But there are goals there. There's just there wasn't any fluidity at all at the weekend, which is a concern. And the crossing wasn't great, which is the sort of that's the main attribute of Luton's attacking play was in the Premier League. And you know, if he goes with back 3 again, that's going to be the main way that you get at Stoke, and it just didn't work. I mean, nothing worked at the weekend. So it's like, if it stays the same everybody's going to be furious. But you're kind of hoping that there's no more bottom of the barrel to scrape there, and the only thing you can do is get better.
I think we've gone through the barrel and we're scraping at the floor, aren't we? Yeah. I mean, I've been proved well and truly wrong when I said after Sheffield United that we've hit rock bottom, because we found a few more levels to go down. And let's hope finally we've plunged to the depths of where we can get to. And I mean, we've got an opponent in front of us that everyone is creating chances against. So I would be really, 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 really worried. I'm only really, really, really at the minute, but I would add another really onto it if we can't create anything against this lot. I really would. As I say, they're 2 points above us in the table. They're not in particularly great form. They're a side who, you know, for all of the money that they spent in their time in the Championship, have never threatened to get out of the thing. They are stuck in a Championship rut, really. They're the kind of side that in any situation we should be looking at, and no disrespect at all, as a game that we can win at home.
Yeah, that's exactly it. But none of this seems to ring true at the moment. And if any of it had, and you'd had any confidence in any of those sorts of usual ebbs and flows of the way football goes, we wouldn't be in this situation. And it's just, you know, for every step forward there's two back, and sometimes three, sometimes four. I don't know what the weekend was, but it was. You know, it's
I can give you a few words for it, but don't want to get the bleeper machine going.
Yeah, all the stats say that is the situation. I think, you know, regardless of stats, what we can probably glean from the whole scenario is that it's going to be an absolutely atrocious game of football on a terribly cut up pitch against two teams who aren't very good. So
if you haven't got a ticket to this,
well, that's it. I mean, if anything better than that happens, you'll always be delighted, wouldn't you? Because we're what evidence is there that it's going to be anything different?
Yeah, no, literally the only kind of, hope's the wrong word, the only kind of inspiration I can get to go to this match is that Kenilworth Road under the lights is a different place. Apart from that, I mean, if it ever loses that magic, then we are knackered. And also, we're running short of games that we're going to have under here now. I mean, we'll talk about the power core plans at the weekend and after the Blackburn game, but they've been recommended for approval on Monday night. So let's assume that recommendation is carried out. There's only a handful of floodlight games at Kenilworth Road left now. So you kind of hope that the magic and the inspiration can be taken from that, because we, even this season, take Sunderland out of the equation, we have a pretty good record under the floodlights, and that was our best losing performance of the season. So there's that, but then whilst that gets you high on one side of your body, the memories of Saturday comes back and, you know, tips the balance the other way. But what's it going to be? Is it going to be a repeat of Saturday? My head would probably tell me yes, but then my heart will say, well, floodlights, maybe it'll be different. The setup and the approach has to be different. If it's the same as Saturday, where there's no style, no structure, and for the want of a better phrase, no clue, then even Stoke will turn us over.
Well, that's where we are now. You could go through a list of all the different possible ways you can win a football match, and most of the tactical ways and the form ways and the confident ways are out the window, seemingly, at the moment. So you're left going, well, hopefully the Kenny comes up trumps under the lights, and that's where you are at the moment. Incidentally, we should say to people, it's probably got at least 2 seasons left at the Kenny.
Yeah.
It's not like it's going to happen.
But even then, you've only
2027 is the guide date, isn't it? But yeah,
you're absolutely right. But even then, you've only got 8 midweek games per season, of which you'd like to think half are at home, half are away. So that's a maximum of 8 if it is only 2 seasons after this season. 1 or 2 might be in August or May, which wouldn't be under floodlights. We're getting down towards low double digits for midweek games, is basically what I'm saying. It's no longer an automatic thing that we're going to have these magical nights to remember forever and a day. It's not the case now.
No, and in the same token, if they're running out, you don't want to be spending them, frustrated and annoyed and angry and booing and all that stuff. If they're running out, you want them to be magical, don't you? And I think we're a long way from magical, but a tiny spark would be nice.
And that spark is exactly it, isn't it? First 15 minutes, go after the game. Don't let the last 3 games, Leeds away, Norwich away, Swansea at home. Yeah, the top 3 for possession in the league. Within 60 seconds, all 3 of them have got in behind our fullback and cut a ball back to the edge of the box. Same again. Stop that. Stop the mindset in the crowd of, oh, here we go again. We've got another 90 minutes to endure rather than enjoy. Just stop that.
Yeah, I mean, it does need a lift as well, but you can understand why it was quiet. So I'm not digging at anyone out. I'm there observing and reporting on the fact that it was absolutely, dead and quiet in the first half. Particularly, it got a little noisier from the noisy boys in the corner of the main stand in the second half. But even when the goal went in, yeah, you celebrate, but then there was no extra kick on from that. And
yeah,
I understand that. Oh, that's fine. I'm not saying people aren't annoyed and they're not worried and they're not concerned and disappointed by how everything's gone. That's natural. But I think if we're asking players to try and dig something out from the reserves, then there probably needs to be, a bit of reciprocation there from the stand somehow.
Yeah, I think you'll get that if there is that, but we all saw that the goal was a mistake. It wasn't like we carved them open with some incisive football or anything. And also, it was lashing it down with rain. It was windy as anything. 60% of the crowd were getting absolutely soaked. You know where I sit in the Kenilworth end, and I was getting soaked. Such was the strength of the wind and rain. So everyone in front of me was getting soaked. It's hard to get your hands out and clap and cheer and everything when you're getting drenched and all this, particularly when the football is uninspiring in front of you. On the flip side of that, at Norwich, the noise was really, really good. The singing was good throughout. It got quiet in the last 5 or 6 minutes because, again, we've seen what we've seen before. People shooting us in the foot and contributing to our own downfall. But
yeah, I mean, this is the ebb and flow of a football season. To think that all crowds are always all up for it, and in this country anyway, is nonsense. That even the most revered grounds like your Anfields, I've been up there for games. I once covered Northampton versus Liverpool in the Carling Cup, or whatever it was called back then, Rumbelows Cup.
Well, just the Premier League game that we were there for. Till they equalised, it was silent.
And there's lots of fans that go up there and sing to them, "Where's your famous atmosphere?" Because Liverpool couldn't care less about most teams. It's the European nights when they play big teams, your Man Uniteds, Man Cities, and blah, 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 then they give it big uns. So it's not. This country, there's a myth that this country that atmospheres are electric all the time, and they're doubly the other way when things aren't going well. So, like I say, I understand why it was like that. I just think that if you can eke something out of your evening to give it both barrels, then now might be the time.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I do think that it needs some assistance on the pitch, even if it's just a positive approach.
Yeah, this is what I mean about if somebody can launch into a fair but robust challenge. Yeah. Luton fans love that, and most fans love that, to be fair. I'm not saying it's a Luton thing. If you can do that, do something, early attack to get the noise up, something like that would be particularly of order now.
I mean, let's hope this isn't the case, but even if it's a crap referee, and Christ, we've had enough of them this season, it gets the crowd going. Mm-hmm. Something to get the crowd up. I mean, we had the 3 in succession of couldn't give no handballs, and the crowd was, F the FA and Football League.
Anything, even one of the Stoke players trying to nick 5 yards from a throw-in. Anything that people hate that. Anything like that would be ideal for just trying to raise the current malaise that there is. Understandable malaise, but something needs to click off and on the pitch. That's just how it is when you're down in the dumps.
Yep, I think Rob can assist the crowd by going back to the back 4, maybe by including an academy product for us all to get behind or whatever, and then hopefully the crowd reciprocate it. First goal's important. they're winless in 5, so they'll go down if they concede it. You only have to see previous matches to see what happens when we concede a goal. So the first goal is going to be absolutely massive here. Hopefully we can get it. And hopefully we can push on. It's been a while since we've looked like scoring 2 goals at home. Obviously Watford was the last time it happened. Didn't look like scoring twice against West Brom, really. I know Hashi at the at the post from that corner, but certainly didn't look like scoring a second against Cardiff, and we could still be now trying to score a second against Hull and Swansea, because the intention just didn't seem like it was there. So maybe get a second one and then we can all enjoy the evening, can't we? Who knows? But yeah, just warm us up, Town. Please do something to warm us up. That's for sure. So how many changes are you seeing on Tuesday night?
Well, I don't expect there will be any change to the back three to what finished, even though we've talked about we want it to be. So that means they would stay. Hashi would stay on the right. Sue goes on the left. You could probably guess it would be Victor Moses goes as a sort of left wing back, even though I don't think that really works. So that'd be the one change, wouldn't it? Marvellous. Well, probably I'd see him staying. I can't see the midfield changing, to be honest. It could. You've got Pelly on the bench. He could come in, add a bit of freshness, but yeah, I don't think it would be. So then it'd probably be in the forward line, wouldn't it? And with, we don't know the availability of Eli. He seemed okay, confident that it was just a little knock, but you know how these things go. You never know.
Seemed okay. It was just a knock when he pulled out against Man United, didn't he? We barely saw him again that season.
There is that indeed. So, maybe that'd be the other change. And if it is, Brown. So that's just 2 changes, isn't it? And that doesn't really seem enough to do the job. But we are, again, threadbare at the back, and you've got no options. If you had Burke in, you could, he wouldn't like to see it, but he could play on the right, maybe, and Hashi goes on the other side, or vice versa. But he's not. Bell gives the option to play a 4 or a 3. He's not going to be playing, obviously. You're looking at 1-2 changes, really, aren't you? Probably.
Yeah, I think there'll be 2 changes as well. And I think there'll be the 2 that you've referenced, although, as I said earlier in the podcast, I would give Joe Johnson a chance. I do think we're in a situation now where whoever you bring in can't be worse. So you might as well just bring in and see if they can be better.
I agree. I think ideally, I see you've almost got it's not a free hit, is it? Because there's so much on the line, but it can't get any worse. So give that a go. That would seem like an ideal scenario for me. And then that would be a back 4. And then you could play a variation of 3 and 3 in front, or 3-2-1, or whatever it is, whatever the different formations it is. But there's more in the middle of the park for sure. But then more options going forward, and there just weren't those for a good hour against Swansea, and that's one of the reasons why it was so dire.
Yeah, just to summarise, we've got no defenders, so take a defender out of the formation. We've got plenty of attacking players, so put an extra one in the formation, and let's play to what the strengths are that we've got right now.
And then maybe it will be this early season promise, which again, things can change, but if anything, now you want to try and be attacking and exciting, and maybe this is now.
Yep. Yeah, certainly certain people at the club I don't think have got anything to lose here. The Last Chance Saloon has it's got its bar well and truly open, hasn't it? It's not called Last Orders yet, perhaps, but the bell will toll soon if things don't change. That is for sure. That's pretty much it for this episode of the podcast. All that's left is the score predictions. Jimbo has stolen a march on me, courtesy of having first pick last time. I get first pick this time, and I'll stick with what I said in the last game, 2-1 Luton.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go with.
There's no
rules against
now
this,
that I'm 4 points ahead, I'm just going to match you up each time.
But now I'm thinking maybe I can just, not that the football gods have favoured me of late, but maybe if I went in the opposite way and we could get something. Do I do that? No. I'll tell you what. No, I'm going to go with what I said. about what we're probably going to witness, which is two terrible teams in terrible form, playing on a terrible pitch in terrible weather. It's going to be awful, and it'll be 1-1 again.
Don't take up a job as a salesman for football tickets, whatever you do, because you might not sell many. I mean, you're honest, and I can't say that you're wrong. But you probably, anyone who's watching this thinking, shall I go, shouldn't I go? You're probably not tipping them towards Kenilworth Road.
That's not what I'm here for. I'm afraid that's other people's job.
You've just made the couch look very, very appealing.
I'm here to tell you, give us some reality.
I mean, this room's warmer. Shall we just do a watch along a live watch along on the laptop and go from there? At least it'll save us getting pneumonia or something similar to that. Yeah, 2-1 for myself, 1-1 again for Jimbo. Exactly the same score predictions as we went with at the weekend. Let's hope that it's a different story and that I'm right this time and Jimbo is wrong. Let's have your score predictions.
That's what you say. I mean,
well, that's what Luton fans should be saying. I think all Luton fans want us to win, even if very few of us actually see it happening.
I don't want to be right, but if I happen to be, then I will pull further away from this guy.
You will indeed, yeah. Yeah, don't let it happen, Town. Do not let it happen.
No, actually, don't let it happen, really. I don't, yeah. I don't want to be giving you a whooping before Christmas. or do I?
Well, that is a question only you can answer, thankfully, mate. Not so long to get your score predictions in for this one, unfortunately. Again, don't blame us, blame the schedule. There's got to be a run of where we don't have a midweek game for so long, and it feels like every other midweek we've had a game for about the last 10 weeks.
Yeah, I know, and I don't bloody sleep when that happens.
No,
we're either in here or.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, nor does this room, does it? We're well and truly in here. Yeah, get your score predictions into us. As always, if you're right, we'll give you a shout out in the review episode of the podcast, where we're going to be joined by a guest to review the game and look ahead to the Blackburn one later on in the week too, which is something to look forward to. It won't just be our two voices.
Hallelujah.
Indeed, particularly as my throat's struggling with all the football and podcasts at the moment as well. That is it for this episode of the podcast. Please do keep liking, rating, subscribing, everything that you can do to help us, particularly the subscribing bit, because that helps you as well. Podcasts are going to keep on coming thick and fast, not just this week, but we're on the horizon of Christmas, which is the busiest period. And whilst our content won't be as regular as it is throughout the season, we will still bring as many podcasts to you during that Christmas period as we can. But we do have families, so an early warning for that we might skip one or two along the way.
We could just show you the paint drying from the last episode.
We could indeed. In fact, a lot of you commented on that, so well, that's what it looks like.
It's dry.
Dried paint. Hopefully that means there's some entertainment on the pitch then, and no paint drying watching on the football pitch. Thanks as ever to the Barber Club and the lower level in Luton for hosting our studio, particularly this week where we have a midweek game, guys. We really appreciate your support, as we do to Sean Grant and the Wolfgang for our intro music, and to Ed Smith Creative for all the designs that you see on set. Until next time, which will be a review of what we hope will be an enjoyable game of football against Stoke, and 3 points for the Town. From Jimbo and myself, come on you Hatters, please, please, please get those 3 points.
For me, it's the people and the spirit of the people as well.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.